Well, good morning. Thank you for joining me for another community update. I know we changed these a while back. We're doing a little bit more on the kind of pre-recorded and then posting them a little bit later. We are going to start going back to live probably just after Labor Day to do some live updates or a Facebook town hall or however we want to call them. So continue to send your questions. If we don't get to them today, please, we try to get back to them as many as possible. This is just one unique way of what we're trying to do is stay in touch with the community. And obviously, I've gone back and forth about how we can, do a little bit better job of that. And I've even started to walk a little bit in and around Akron in some neighborhoods, trying to address some concerns. I'll continue to do that on a weekly basis, maybe sometimes even twice a week. And that's really part of the connection part that I miss. I like being out. I think you find out great from, talking to people on their porches and their driveways about their communities and what they want to see get done. So obviously, I think COVID kind of changed a lot of that for everybody, on a grand scale, because we don't want to have that much contact. But if you don't have that, I think you're missing a significant part of what makes Akron great are its people and what their concerns are. And so I'll continue to try and do that as best we can to try to reach as many people. But we'll continue to try to take ideas and put them out there too. What's the best way to connect? But like I said, I think one of the most important things is face-to-face. It's just where we are with COVID and how that spreads. But even as I walk, though, I do have a mask. We do social distance. We're not, it's not hours at a time. We're trying not to, obviously spread the virus. Safety's been a key thing, not only in the work environment, but obviously throughout the city for the last 6 months. And that'll be that's our key thing, is just trying to keep people safe. So thank you for welcoming you and welcoming me in your driveways, on your porches, just talking to you on the sidewalk, and I'll continue to try and do that. And if you have a request, you want me to stop by, I'm sure we're going to get a flood of them. Sorry about that for my team, but we'll try and stop by as best we can. So just last week, Council President Margot Somerville and I announced the City of Akron's Racial Equity and Social Justice Task Force. We talked a little bit about this in June. And we've asked Bishop Joey Johnston to lead these efforts. And really the mission is in and around building better public trust in the community by formulating, meaningful recommendations on policy changes, not only within the city, but also of how we can lead on a lot of those things through the institutions. To me, I think it's going to be some of the hardest work that we do, but I think it's going to be the most rewarding too. Even after declaring racism as a public health crisis, now is when the real work gets to be done. And I know a lot of people wanted to be part of it. And the list of people that could have been on it is probably well into the hundreds, if not thousands. And if you weren't chosen to be on the executive committee, for that, I apologize. But there's a significant amount of work going on in the subcommittees. And if we have asked you to be part of that, I really appreciate your involvement. It's because I know you love the city. I know you want to see it moving forward. And I know you have some great ideas to be able to do it. So if you've gotten that contact for that part of it too, please stay in tuned and please be part of that subcommittee if we reach out and try and ask you to do that. Because I think it's going to be some very meaningful work, not only within the city, but how we take the lead to model for other institutions to be able to address a lot of those systemic issues that are out there in the community. Now, moving along, unfortunately, this past weekend, we would have had our Pride Festival in the city of Akron. It would have marked our 4th one. And unfortunately, given what crowds are kind of limited to do, we weren't able to have it. But I was able to join County Executive Eileen Shapiro and the APF Steering Committee, and we had a very small Pride Solidarity March on Saturday, just walking from Highland Square to Hardesty Park. And it was a great walk, and you got to connect on obviously a much smaller level with some people in the community, and we want to continue to show our support for Pride. I've been part of each of the marches and instituting policy changes within the city. We've always said, and I'll always say, we want to be a welcoming city for all. And so how we make those changes to make people feel welcome so they can thrive in here, I'm committed to do throughout my years in public service. So thank you to all who were part of it. And I look forward to next year. I think we'll have a great crowd. Hopefully we're through this, and I hate to say crowds, but hopefully we'll be able to have the Pride March next year. So a few additional updates. I know a couple of weeks ago we announced our Akronite app, and if you haven't downloaded it, you can go to your app store and download it. And the whole theme of this is we want all of your actions to count. Many of you have spending choices out there of where you can spend your money. And obviously, when you spend local, it has a much more significant impact on our local businesses, not the least of which are our restaurant community and our food service, who feed us, who it's such an important part of our daily lives. They feed us in a very challenging time. And when you can think of, hey, where can I spend my dollars? Well, if you spend them local, you can earn what they call blimps, and allows residents and businesses really, I think, to stretch your dollar at a most significant economically challenging time. You're able to earn blimps for shopping local and then redeem those blimps at participating businesses for future purchases. So download the app. It's free, and we will post a link right after this, but it is available for both Apple and Android. So I've hammered this message at least for a year and a half since we started our Complete Count Committee sometime in the spring of 2019 and getting ready for the census. And quite frankly, some of our numbers aren't as good as they should be. As a city, we're somewhere around 65% so far on the response rate. The county is at about 72 or 73%. We're a little bit behind where our 2010 numbers are. And you need to complete the census, and it's done by the end of September. They cut it off by a month. For some reason, they decided to scale that back. So if people are contacting you about doing the census, they're doing some reach outs, they're hopefully knocking on your door, but you can do it from your mobile device or from a computer. It's significantly important for the city of Akron that we count every single person. A lot of our federal funding, when it comes to congressional allocations, it comes from the number of people that we have. So let's make sure we get everybody counted. We have some census tracts that are a little bit underperforming. And quite frankly, we're working on a couple of ideas and with our partners with the census and with the county. And quite frankly, I think we need kind of like a 40-day blood drive, just to use an analogy, and maybe be out there a little bit more in the community. Maybe it's with the showmobile, maybe it's with a group of people, encouraging people to be counted in the census. So we got to make sure we're counted so we get the best and most accurate count that depends upon the federal funding that we get. Also, they draw legislative districts that way. So let's make sure we get counted and make sure that you complete the census for 2020. If you have questions about how to do it, where you can get forms, please. You can contact the census or send us a message on social media and we'll point you in the right direction. So at the beginning of a lot of this, especially around spring, we were talking about resurfacing. We scaled back the program just a little bit, but it is ongoing this week, and you still see some roads being resurfaced. Today, we're repaving Easter Avenue and Diagonal Road in Ward 3 and moving on to Grand Avenue and Peckham Streets and into other streets in Ward 4. Not the least of which is, we still obviously get pothole requests and street issues. So if you have those or have a question or a complaint about where we can get out there and fix them, make sure you call 311. It's an easy number. I'll repeat it. Make sure you call 311 and we can get those requests taken care of. Quite frankly, with the resurfacing over the last few years, our pothole requests have actually gone down. That doesn't mean that we don't have a significant number of them. We do. It's just that the requests have gone down because obviously the streets are getting a little bit better. But we'll continue to get out there and resurfacing. Hopefully we'll end up sometime around the end of October. It is weather dependent, the asphalt and how much you can make, but hopefully by the end of October, we'll be wrapped up with resurfacing. So thanks for all the requests so far. I think we still got a significant amount done this year and hopefully get back to a full program in 2021, but still a lot of questions remain on that part of it too. I know a lot of you sent questions in online and we're more than happy to start taking some of those questions. So I'll let Amanda take it away.
Okay, first question is, why are splash pads and playgrounds open, but still no basketball hoops are up?
That's a good question. And going through the process of saying, okay, what should we be opening up and how can we still provide some of those summertime activities? And if you've noticed, I think we've had an excellent weather, sunshine-wise, in the city of Akron this year, and in our pools and splash pads have been able to be open through about the beginning of July all the way through the end of August. I know we have some dates that they'll be closing here pretty soon. And we thought about basketball hoops, but with the pools and the splash pads, we were always able to control the number of people that were there. We were able to safely open them up because we were staffing it. And we're able to sanitize as many things as possible and obviously keep people away as much as possible. Given that obviously basketball is a recreational sport and all you need really is a ball and a hoop, our decision was to take them down so we wouldn't have people congregate. quite frankly, and I'll be honest with you, we've been having this conversation for a couple of days. Is that a viable option even now? I've been thinking about whether we should put the hoops back up and whether we should sign it. Obviously, you would have to be able to play at your own risk because we're not going to be able to clean the basketball courts or the hoop. And basketball is a contact sport, no matter what people like to think, and you're going to be in close proximity. But as fall sports are opening through schools, and hopefully schools will be able to get back to in-school instruction at some particular point, I'm really rethinking whether we should open the playgrounds back up and basketball hoops. So I should have more of an announcement, hopefully a couple days into this week, about what we will do. But I am rethinking whether we're going to put the hoops back up. Listen, my overall goal has always been to let's keep people safe. And the way that we were able to keep them safe is not have them congregate. Obviously, what I don't want to see, and this is oxymoronic, because any other year, any other time, and if you would have asked any other mayor, they would have said, wouldn't you have loved to have seen 100 people playing basketball, throughout the summer at a park? And I would have been, yeah, I would have stepped in and watched. Now, these days, if you get 100 people gathering, it's a little bit more of an issue when it comes to the spread, especially with kids. I don't necessarily think from a statewide, there's that testing infrastructure in place to be able to do that. Giving all of that, obviously, I think playing basketball would still entail some sort of risk. And you may have to be able to play at your own risk. And if we sign that and put signs up to that effect, we may be, like I said, I think we're going to take a deeper dive over the next couple of days and just relook at it. So I don't have a final answer for you and say, hey, listen, we're definitely going to do it or not do it, but I'm definitely looking at it again and may have a different answer for you by the end of the week. So good question. It's not something that we didn't take seriously. It was just something, how can we do this and do it safely? That's been my overarching goal, period, is to be able to do that. So good question.
Okay, next question. Is there a plan to demolish any vacant houses that appear to be beyond repair? If there is a plan, can you share a specific timeline for demolition?
Yeah, we rely a lot on the public and our staff to be able to do that. Yes, there's always a plan to tear down houses. And I think the city of Akron has been fairly aggressive over the years, even through the foreclosure crisis and acquiring a lot of those properties and then getting them back into, I guess, the public hands. Yes, there's a plan. If you let me know the address of so we can get on the Housing Appeals Board's list, I literally turn in, probably a half a dozen a week to our city departments to make sure that they're on the list and get on the demo list. We used to get a significant amount of money from the federal government, and those monies have kind of run out a little bit on the demo. We still do take some down, but we were taking down about 400 or 500 a year, maybe even 600 a year for a few years straight to be able to clear some of those things. Now with the empty lots, we've turned them into, if you want to build a house on it, there's property tax abatement. If you're a neighboring owner, you could buy that. We also have the Mow to Own program, which if you take care of it after a certain amount of time, you can own it. Given all that, yes, there's been a plan. There's always been a plan. It's usually sometimes a longer process than I would have even liked. I would even like to see some of these houses being rehabbed by, obviously the private sector. They can buy them and put some money into it and kind of go from there. So, but if you have specific addresses, please let us know. We'll make sure they get on the list and hopefully get on the demo list and kind of go from there. So thanks.
Okay, what is the plan to eliminate gun violence in Akron?
This question has probably come up more as much as anything over the last 5 years is the level of gun violence in Akron, and not only in Akron, but I would argue every major city across the state of Ohio and across the country. We specifically came out about 2 years ago with a youth violence reduction plan, specifically when it comes to guns. I know our seizures are up this year. If you back up just a little bit, when the COVID hit, obviously we were encouraging people actually the economy in the state of Ohio shut down for a while. We were encouraging people not to go out, not to have as many interactions with people. And that also, we wanted to keep the COVID out of the jails and prisons. And so they made some structural changes about how people would take if you were going to be able to go to the Summit County Jail. We've worked with them very closely over the last few weeks to expand that, to get people who have guns, who are using guns, behind bars and locked up to keep the community safe. We'll continue to work on that when it comes to, and this isn't necessarily a police issue. This is a public safety issue. And it's a primary concern for us, for the police department, for everybody in the community to get these guns off the street. But quite frankly, it's a frustrating aspect that we can't even have a conversation about common sense gun reform. And this isn't about people who are legally allowed to have guns. These are just about the issues about the flow of illegal guns, reporting when they're stolen. Like I said, seizures are up this year, already 11%. I know in an 8-hour period, we have a specific gun violence reduction task force within the city of Akron Police Department that is very aggressive in trying to get these guns off the street. But quite frankly, if we seize 12, there's another probably, 8 or 9 that pop right back up. And so as a community, we'll always continue to try to take those illegal guns off the streets so they don't have them, and continue to work in that effort. And we'll be diligent about it also to get them off there. So good question. But it always evolves about, those flow of illegal guns. Like I said, it's not about those people who are legally allowed to have them. But if you're not allowed to have one and you have a weapons under disability, let's move them to get arrested and go to jail. So that's what we'll continue to do, is keep this community safe. And also, Chief Ball and I did provide an update on gun violence and the efforts around the police public safety efforts around those last week. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch that just from last week.
Okay. How were the members of the Racial Equality and Social Justice Task Force chosen?
You know what, President Somerville and I, Margot, initially went to Bishop, and quite frankly, like I said, I think the list of people who could have been on it is long and distinguished, and it wasn't meant to be a personal slight to say, hey, you're not on this part of it. But I think there's going to be a lot of really hard work in those subcommittees too. And so, and if you are on those and would like to be part of those, please let us know. And those will be as big as, and if it has to grow to take on something else, it's certainly flexible in that way to be able to do it. So as Margot and Bishop and I went through this, I thought it needed a strong leader from the executive side who has I think a tremendous amount of value in this space, who's been leading the efforts for years. And that's not to say that a lot of people have not. And so as we went through a list of names, obviously we wanted a list of diverse people to be able to tackle, so I think, some very hard issues and have some very difficult conversations. So we went through a list of, people that have been involved for a while, people that are a little bit younger. We wanted a diverse crowd when it came to race, equity, and gender. So we tried to put a diverse number of people as possible. And we have 29 people that are going to be part of it, which is a large group, but it's going to take a lot of people to be able to address some of these systemic issues. And we encourage a lot of people with voices to be able to offer some of those. But these are our efforts to be able to address, I think, a lot of the things that have come up over the summer and even before, and to make those specific policy changes that make us a better and to address racism as a public health crisis. And so I look forward to the conversations and instituting those policy changes across the city of Akron, not only within our organization, but obviously I think taking a lead and showing other organizations of how we can address those. Good question.
Okay, final question. How is the city working to ensure the many tenants facing eviction don't wind up on the street? Will the city consider imposing a rent moratorium, and will the city work with tenants and landlords to partially forgive back rent payments?
This issue obviously came up very quickly when COVID hit, that people were going to have a specific need to not lose their home and not lose their apartment. And so obviously we've been working pretty diligently very early on to set up a program to do that. And so if you have if you're facing rent or mortgage payment assistance, obviously call 211. And we put a significant amount of money, literally millions of dollars, through CARES Act and through private donations to help people not only with their utility payments, but also with their rent assistance. We see it as a large need. The program has been hugely successful so far, with a lot of people taking advantage of that. And I would encourage you, to call 211 so we can get you on that list and get you the help that we need. There is a moratorium right now on federal housing evictions. And obviously we put the message out there with private landowners too, is that this is not the best time to start this. As people are facing economic uncertainty, we certainly don't want them to face housing insecurity, because it just exacerbates a lot of the issues when it comes to homelessness or food or anything else. And so if you have other ideas, and I know this idea or the question came from Nick, if there's something that you think that we're not doing, how can we support those efforts too? Let us know. But if you do call 211, you do get on that. We are providing, and like I said, this is millions of dollars going back to people who need it the most. And that's all what those CARES Act dollars should be for. A lot of those to provide that assistance to get them through this, I think, significantly hard time, not only in Akron, but across the state, across the country. So as always, I encourage you to support all of your local stores and restaurants if you're able to do so. Food is a big part of everybody's life. So if you're able to participate and get to some of these restaurants, I know they appreciate it. They've made a significant investment into their business to say, how can we socially distance? Because they've had to reduce the capacity. Obviously, there are restrictions on alcohol past 10 o'clock. But the food and having patios and being able to do that outside, if you're able to do that, I know they appreciate it, and they asked me to pass along all of their appreciation so far to keep customers safe. And as I go out, and this has really been, I think, amazing to me. On March 10th, if you would have said, hey, we're going to be wearing masks in 6 months going into restaurants and stores, I would have thought, there's just no way. We're just not going to do it. I see a lot of compliance when it comes to masks. You see a lot of compliance with people doing social distancing. And for that, as mayor of the city of Akron, I appreciate all of everybody's efforts to be able to do that on a daily basis. This is not going to be with us forever. We are going to find a vaccine. We are going to get through this. And when we look back, we're going to say, we did what we needed to do. We did what we had to do to protect others. Because this isn't, if we're not all in this together, then we're all kind of in it by ourselves. And that's not the kind of community that I don't think we live in. And I don't think that's the kind of country we live in either. So I appreciate all of your sacrifices to be able to do that and show up, support those local businesses. Have a great week, Akron. Talk to you soon. Be safe. Stay well.